besides here now, besides the moment that you're listening to my words right here, right now, life cannot be experienced outside of this moment.
Welcome to the Small Steps, Big Wins podcast. I'm dedicated to helping you take control of your life. Together, we'll explore practical tips, expert advice, and inspiring stories to help you overcome obstacles and achieve your goals. Making small changes is possible and can lead to big results. Are you ready? Let's go do this.
Yeah, because I feel there's cool stuff in this conversation already. So.
Yeah, there is. So, Mark, I feel like I know you already. You know how I found you? First, I listened to you on Jamie Gruber's Tribe of Millionaires podcast, and I was fascinated that you're a former Cirque du Soleil performer. I've seen at least 4 Cirque performances, and I was trying to remember. Yeah, I've seen 4 of them. I saw one up in Canada, the one with the horses. What was the name of that one?
That's not Cirque du Soleil. That would be Cavalia. So that's not Cirque du Soleil, but
that
a
wasn't
lot of people, a lot of people think it's the same company. But no, it's not. It's not.
Oh, I'm so sorry. Well, then that
Don't
one,
worry.
we'll just take that one off there.
No
But my
problem.
daughter was into horses at the time, and so they were all
They
enthralled
produce
by being
beautiful
up there.
shows. Yeah, beautiful
It was
shows.
amazing. It was
Yes.
amazing. And I know we saw one, I think 2 years ago outside Philadelphia, and I can't remember the name for the life of me, but it was the one where the girl was in the fishbowl. That at least that was part of the act where she was in
Okay.
the water, and
Amaluna, maybe.
yeah, I think that's what it
It's a
was.
woman's show. Yeah.
Yeah, I saw that one, and then there was one in Philadelphia, downtown Philly. That was, I have to say, it was a decade ago, and then maybe one more than that. But anyway, I heard you on Jamie's podcast. I'm like, oh, it's Cirque, and I listened to the entire podcast from beginning to end. I'm like, who the hell is this guy? Like, you were just so fascinating to listen to. So then I did an internet search and went, where else are you? So I found you on Austin's podcast. And so I listened to that too. And I think you did 2 episodes with him. Or at least he sent me, yeah, that's right, producers one and something else. And I'm like, okay, let me take a chance. Will you please come on my podcast? And here we are.
Well, thank you for having me. It's a beautiful project. I took a look at your podcast. You do great, outstanding work because I could see that you're not doing things randomly. You study, you learn. We could see that you went online and you figure it out, because we all do that. Podcasting is a new thing for everybody. There's no expert. It's a 2 days old medium, on the human scale. I mean, we don't know shit. We know nothing about social media. We know nothing about SEO. We don't, it's still new on the human scale. So it's cool that you took a leap of faith and you went there and you were like, okay, I'm not an expert, but I'll try to figure it out. I admire that. That's very cool.
Oh, thank you. Well, for me, it was kind of low risk almost because I'm part of a mastermind group called The Merge, and I joined last October. And while I was in there, all these other people, like, they're doing stuff, they're buying houses or they're flipping this or they're buying businesses. And here I am, I'm a financial advisor. I'm like, what am I going to do with, I have to do something. You can't be part of a mastermind group like that and not do anything. So I wasn't ready to buy a property, and I didn't know enough to buy a business. So the other was, oh, well, let me see if I can start a podcast. And well, let me back up 1 second. I had a fail in there where I was going to start teaching kids and parents how to do investing, how to do real estate investing, produce courses, because I have a
Yes.
teaching background. And
Yes.
there's not a whole lot out there where parents and children can pass that knowledge together. Like, you think of Robert Kiyosaki's cash flow game, which is awesome, but it's
Mhm.
not industry specific. And I thought, oh, I'd come in and I teach about finances and teach about the financial aspect of real estate because I love real estate and I do know quite a bit. I'm like, okay, I'll do that. But because I'm licensed, I have to go through compliance, and compliance shot it down. They said they would not allow me to produce any kind of content or
Ah,
curriculum or anything because of the licenses that I hold, because it
yeah.
crossed too much into the financial advising realm.
The
And
SEC, it's tricky, huh? It's a
yeah, it is.
very tricky
Oh
entity.
yeah, yeah. Yeah, there's a lot of rules and regulations of things that you can and can't do. I mean, I had to get compliance approval just to have a podcast. and then I had to tell
Wow.
them what it's on, and then they monitor my website and everything. Yeah, so there's a lot that
Wow.
goes behind that. So that was kind of like my first quote unquote fail, and I know I wanted to do something. So I said, well, if I can't produce that way, why not a podcast? Why not small steps, big wins? Because for me, I was like, I would love to have had people around me that would have shared their stories on how they got from point A to point B.
Mm.
Why not? And then in the
Mhm.
group I was in, there's lots of people to talk to and a lot of GoBundance guys that I could reach out to who wanted to tell their story, and they were more than happy and willing to help me. So we started January, and I just figured it out. I built my own website and said, well, let me figure that out. And so I launched a
Beautiful.
website, I launched my podcast, and here we are today, 7 months later. I love what I do. I committed to do it for a year, and it's going to keep going at least a year because I learned so much. I love talking to people, but at the end of the day, I love asking the deep questions that brings content out there that can improve somebody's life. And one person at a time. So,
Beautiful. That's why I'm
but this
honored to
isn't
be on
my
the show.
podcast. It's not my podcast. It's your podcast. So-
Well, we could argue that, but it's okay.
Sorry. Hey, so when you were performing in Cirque,
Yeah,
I'm sure you felt in flow with your character and what you were doing while you were doing that. But at some point in your career, you pivoted and you realized it was time to go. What caused that? And what was going on with you emotionally? Like, just capture that time, because it would seem like it'd be really cool to be a performer. So
it is cool.
I
It is
bet.
cool. I was lucky enough to, when I was just a child, I saw one of the first Cirque du Soleil show, and I just knew at a very early age that this is what I wanted to do. So I did, I did a fair amount of gymnastic, trampoline, and all that, but I ended up developing myself as an actor and an artistic director. So I work in sort of both industry. I worked in theater. I was the circus guy in theater, and I was the theater guy in the circus world. And Cirque du Soleil is probably the only place where I feel they're looking for hybrid profile like mine. People that are not completely on the circus side, people that are not completely on the theater side, they're sort of in between and all that. So I forged basically my whole identity towards this goal, which was working for Cirque du Soleil as a main character on tour, not on tour. I didn't know at that time, but I really nourished this dream all my life. It was almost, I'm going to give you a stupid example, but when I was a child, before, for example, jumping into cold water, I was saying to myself, oh, if I don't jump into that cold pool, I'm not going to work for Cirque du Soleil. Oh, if I don't get my little vaccine, you know what I mean? Like when you're nervous to get a little shot of something
Mhm.
at school, no, I will not work for Cirque du Soleil.
Wow.
I really wired my brain uh, to achieve this goal. And what happened is I was lucky enough to achieve it fairly early. I think at 23, I started to work for Cirque du Soleil, 23, 24, something like that, if I remember well. Um, it was good at the beginning, but very slowly I had that feeling of, and now what? Okay, I achieved my
Mm.
goal. Okay, I'm living the dream. I'm doing 478 shows a year. I'm for I have a good salary. It's a W-2 job as well. On Cirque du Soleil, that's a whole other topic. But I was living in Vegas on a resident show, so I own a house, a car. I had payments to make. I had children, and I was living the life until, yeah, I realized, whoa. So, but what else is there for me? Like, I have no other goals now. So then I wanted to become an artistic director, and slowly Cirque du Soleil started to hire me as a sort of artistic consultant, sending me on other shows, working on the human performance strictly.
Mhm.
Um, and I did that. And at some point, it was a flash of a moment. I was on the strip. I was driving my car, my little red Mini Cooper at that time, and I turned around. And if you go to Vegas today, you will see my face everywhere. So like there's this is my face. They use my image. I was one of the main character of the show, so they use my image for the publicity, among other main character as well, of course. but I was next to a tour, like a little like a sightseeing bus, those big tourist bus, and I saw my face in big, and I didn't recognize myself on the spot. I really looked and I was like, oh, I thought it was another guy. And when I realized it was me, I was like, wow, oh, okay, I don't even recognize myself anymore into that. And while I was in Vegas, I was always an entrepreneur on the side of things. Like I'm passionate about business. I'm passionate about creating machines that create money, creating a system that, after the operation, there's money left. For me, it's fascinating to me. Um, and I had one major project. I had a project that fell massively in Vegas, right? But massively, it fell. It was a business project. It fell. I tried. It fell. And analyzing that, I realized that I failed because I underestimated the social media aspect of things. It was back in 2013, 2014. So even the word digital marketer didn't exist at that time. So I started studying digital marketing little by little, and it was a natural process. Then I resigned my contract. Well, I didn't renew my contract. I didn't resign, really. Didn't renew. I moved to Spain, and little by little, someone asked me for a website. Then another person. Then the friend of a friend asked me for something, and then someone else. And all of a sudden, I sort of created a marketing agency without even planning it. I never done any business plan. Never, ever. I never planned anything.
It was just organic.
It was super organic. One person told another person that told another person that, oh, all of a sudden I need an employee. Oh, okay, I'll get an employee. And then more than, oh shit, I need two of those employees. Oh, fuck. And now I need a full-time video editor. Oh, now I need this and that and this. And the cool thing about being a real estate podcast producer is my clients always have other needs. So I end up doing I end up rebranding businesses. I recently rebranded Pre-Real, which is it's a podcast. Actually, if you're interested to be a guest, we should invite you. But I started as their producer, and now I'm a creative director on some of their project. I manage the whole social media, and it was a slow transition. But the bottom line is I identify my whole life to my role, myself as a Cirque du Soleil performer. When I achieved that, I was wondering who I was. That was the depth of the question, and I had to step back and sort of redefine myself a little bit. It was an identity thing for me.
What was the process then after you realized at Cirque that you have to go back and, really figure out what your identity is? Can you talk a little bit about what that
Yeah.
process was and how you and what you concluded? So you're no longer a Cirque,
So what happened is the day I announced that I wasn't renewing my contract. So we had a meeting with the company manager and the senior artistic director, and they start the meeting. Okay, Mark, next year here's your salary, blah blah blah. And I was like, okay, I'm gonna stop you, and yeah, I don't think I'm gonna renew next year. And they were like, hey, why? Where's that coming from? How come? Blah blah blah. Have you lost your mind? And I told them, I said, yes, I think so. And I really think I'm onto something very cool, guys, because I actually lost my mind for real. Because what was making me suffer is my mind identify as a Cirque du Soleil performer, but deep inside me, this is not who I was. So there was something between the outside world and the inside world that didn't match anymore, that created some sort of a depression, and yeah, that was my process. I mean, it's a little anecdote, but it's significant, I think, to express the process.
Yeah, I mean, I wanna capture that there because you were talking about how, you're no longer Cirque, and I wonder how many people out there are experiencing the same thing. They're either in a W-2 or they're in a job that just doesn't feel right to them, and you feel like you're losing your mind.
Mm.
It's like, "I lost my identity, I lost myself, and now
Uh,
I've gotta go find it," you
yeah,
know?
I'm not sure if I lost myself or I just gave up on my ego, I
Mm,
think.
Mhm.
I always say, I always like to say, people that are suicidal are not that stupid. Actually, what do they want to do? They want to end their suffering by killing themselves. But the real question is, who are they?
Mhm.
What are they? What are you exactly killing in a suicide? you know
Right.
so are
Right.
you, am I only the Marc performer, Cirque du Soleil? Am I only that? Because of course, if this is the only thing I believe I am, of course I want to kill that, because this
Mhm.
is not who I am.
Right.
But there's many
Right.
ways you can kill that. So when I say I lost my mind, it's not that I was going crazy. Is I realized that my
Mhm.
ego was a fluid concept. My identity was a sort of fluid concept, and I could do whatever I wanted with that persona that I
Yeah.
created, subconsciously
Mhm.
towards my whole life. And this was a wild rise, because that was a wild ride. Sorry, because when you start realizing that you're not much besides an idea of yourself, because this is who you are, Sue. You're just an idea of yourself. If I
Mhm.
ask you who you are, you're going to tell me an idea of yourself, but just an
Right.
idea. That cannot
Right.
encompass who you are. You might talk about, okay, maybe you're a parent, maybe you have a job, maybe you do this, maybe you love hiking. Okay, cool, but this is not what you are necessarily. This is what
Mhm.
you do, but it's not what you are, right?
Mhm. Mhm.
And to me, this, yeah, losing the mind aspect of it, it was more of a sort of, I don't want to say death of the ego, because my ego is far from being dead, because I use it like a pro every single day. I'm using it right
Mhm.
now, you know
Right.
but now I'm aware of it, and I'm aware that I can shape that. I can do whatever I want, you
Yeah,
know
I'm thinking of a metamorphosis. You know how a
Mm,
moth goes into builds the chrysalis around it, and then what happens inside of that chrysalis, that moth actually decomposes down to some goo. And they've studied this. I mean, I'm not just making this up. It decomposes down into this goo and then reforms itself again, and then when it's ready to come out, it's a beautiful butterfly.
it's crazy, yeah.
And yeah, it is, and I have to wonder if I probably, instead of saying losing your mind, really what's happening is your mind is deconstructing itself, and
Yeah.
you're taking yourself away from that character, from who, the Cirque du Soleil performer in your case, or for me, it was a math teacher, or whoever
Mm,
I was,
mm.
to become into something else. And you're deconstructing, you're breaking your brain down, you're thinking about things differently, you're going deep. And that's hard work.
It
That's
is
like not
artwork,
easy
because
crap.
we take ourselves so seriously. I don't
Mm,
want to I don't want to necessarily go too deep into that, but take a look at all the LGBTQ plus movement. Okay,
mhm,
don't get me wrong, I'm all in favor of all the movement. I have nothing against it and nothing, but why we arrive to all those conflict is, it's because there's an identification process. If I identify, for example, right now, if I identify as a woman, I want you absolutely to see me as a woman, right? Whereas it's a personal choice, and you get into a fight because you hold on to that identity, right?
mhm.
But it's the
Yeah.
same phenomenon with anything. I'm intelligent, I'm so smart, so anyone that will challenge that, I'm gonna go to war with them. I'm a,
Mhm,
like
mhm.
I'm
Yeah.
a, I'm a financial advisor, I'm a successful banker. Anyone that will challenge that, you're gonna go into a fight. So
Mhm.
once you realize that identity itself is fluid, then you have margin in life to breathe. And
Yeah.
then you, all of a sudden, this need that you have to 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 make people fall into your definition of existence is fading every single
Mhm,
day. You don't feel the need to convince people anymore,
mhm.
because you know for yourself. So you
Right.
can inspire people, right? But you cannot force them into the same
Mhm,
path that you choose to walk on, right? So we need to be careful with those identification. You know what I mean? You need to
mhm.
identify just enough so you can grow in a certain field, and you can grow as an expert. Because if you, for example, you're a financial advisor, if you don't identify ever as a financial advisor, we have a problem. You're not going to be competent. It needs
Right.
to be part of yourself. But
Right.
you need to be aware that this is not forever, and this is not who you are. This is not what you are. This is what you do. You're doing it
Yeah.
seriously, but this is not who you are. Yeah.
I love the word fluid, because that's really what you're describing is really what's happening, because
Mm.
you were a Cirque performer, but that's not your identity. You did start a digital media marketing company. I know I got that out wrong, but that's not the essence of who you
No,
are. And
exactly.
I have to want, and I was a math teacher. I was a homeschooling mom for a long time. I was a financial advisor. I had other little jobs here and there, but one thing I came to realize, and see if this resonates with you, is that I really truly believe that all of us have a common thread that runs through all of these, uh, jobs or personas, whatever you want to call them. It runs through all of it. So let me give you an example. As a teacher, I desire to see people learn. I desire to help them. I desire to want to see them overcome their challenges. Well, that common thread spills over into my podcast because I want to help people. I want to see people grow. I want to encourage people. So I wonder if all of us have that common thread that kind of runs through. And then
Yeah.
do you think that anchors our
It,
identity?
yeah, 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 yeah. It feels it. You're talking about the sense of purpose, you
Hmm.
know,
Yeah,
because once you realize you're not that serious, then you need to be really grounded into yourself, your sense of purpose. Why do you do what you do?
right.
Why do you wake up every single morning and you go through this breakfast routine and blah 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 and go to work and come back home, and why? And once this is clear, in your case it's clear, it's education, it's growth, right? A little
Hmm.
bit like that,
Yeah.
for
Yeah.
this, but it's a sense of purpose. So to answer your question, unfortunately I don't think a lot of people know their purpose in life, actually.
Right.
And I think very few know their purpose, and the very few that know it, usually they become very successful.
Yeah, it takes a lot of introspection to
Yes.
figure out where you're at. I mean, I've been doing hard work too. I hired a coach, which was probably one of the best things I ever did
Mm.
because it allowed another person outside of me whose specific purpose is to be a mirror into my life, to
An
see those things
accountability
that
partner.
I can't see in that mirror. Yeah. And honestly, finding a coach for me took me 4 or 5 months because I realized I kind of realized what I needed, but then I also realized I needed a specific person to match my identity to get me out of where I was at. And the
Yeah.
funny thing is, and here's the beauty of podcasting, right? I found my coach through listening to them and the podcast that they produced. So
Oh, okay.
that's how I found him. Actually it started as me asking him to come on my podcast, and then a hour and a half later in the phone call, I'm like, I'm going to hire you. you know?
Yeah, there's some
So,
life coach that just have the gift, right, to
mhm,
inspire you. That's why it's a good thing that you took the time to really find a good match.
mhm.
And
Yeah.
unfortunately, it's something we should apply everywhere.
I wanted to ask you about acting because I find actors, just the whole process of acting fascinating, in that
Mhm.
somebody could memorize all these lines, memorize these actions, take on a different persona. So I wanted to ask you, what was it like to transform into the character that you played when you were performing in Cirque? And then how does the brain mitigate the parts of the character that might not be who you are authentically?
Oof, okay, that's a real deep question that have more than one answer. That's why it's so deep, because every actor is different and every
Mm,
chef have their own recipe. All right.
okay.
So I'm going to give you my recipe. I'm not giving you the recipe. That needs to be very, very clear.
Mm,
For me, there is no. To me, it all comes down to. It's a little bit an extension of what we're talking about since the beginning of the interview. Is once you realize there's an awareness behind who you are. If this is who you are, sorry for the people that just listen to the podcast, but I'm making a little mouth with my hand. Okay. Okay. So most of our life we're just that, we're just a blobbling mouth, and we just think we're that in life, right? But once you start realizing that you're more than that, there's a sort of distance that happen, and you start being aware of who you are. Okay. It's the phenomenon what we were talking. If you're teaching, you were a math teacher, right?
mhm,
While you teach, you're aware that you are teaching. You're not fully 100% just teaching and so into the moment for 3 hours in a row. No, no, because sometimes you think about your grocery list, and sometimes a student fart and it smells
Yeah.
bad, and you need to keep teaching. You
Ki
know what I
Kids
mean?
on their phone, the stuff like
Yes,
that. You
exactly. You need
actually
to
have to
keep going.
mitigate the stuff going on in the classroom. So you're
Yes.
right. Yeah, you're right.
So
There is that, like, out of
once,
body experience
yeah,
almost.
yeah. So once you start sitting more into the awareness, then you start realizing that this persona is malleable. Do you say that in English? Malleable? I think so,
Mhm.
right? Or
Malleable. Mhm.
flexible, right?
Mhm.
And this is what you play with. To me, this is where acting comes into play. Um, so yeah, but everybody has its secret sauce. You know what I mean? It's a tricky question, but to me, it is what it is. It's more of a phenomenon of self-awareness, you
Mhm.
know. And I teach because I think it's important, because I achieve my dream, my goals as a performer. I don't really want to perform again. But I teach at college here, in Spain, in Barcelona. And this is mostly what we work on for a year. Where
Mm.
are you? When you're on stage, if Sue enters and she's playing the role of Samantha, where's Sue? Who's Sue? What is Sue? That's an interesting question, right? Anyone can move around in a weird way, but where are you in all that? Because there's the actress and there's the character, and they're not always one into the other, you know so I bring the students. My students are, college, so 20 years old. There's older ones, but I bring them on this path of who are you, what are you, where is the actor, where is the actress in that scene. Actually, what's the difference between the character and the actor? The actor knows
Mhm.
the answer, the character doesn't know, right?
As you said, it's an
Mm.
individual question,
Yeah,
but
because there
I've
is some
I
actor, they show up on set
right,
and they are in character full on, and they will argue the total opposite of me. They'll say, no, no, you
right.
suck. That's not the truth. That's not how it goes. Blah blah blah. As I say, I share my
Yeah.
recipe.
Yeah, yeah, well, as being a classroom teacher, so we have that in common. I can see where you walk in a classroom, you've got 20 people there, and it's like, okay, I've got to figure out how to reach all 20 of these people, and they're all individuals, and they
Yeah.
all think differently, and they
Uh-huh.
all have to, I have to find some common ground to address all of them. And so, but I always wondered about that with acting, and even just, just memorizing a lot of content. How did I've never actually spoken to an actor before. How do you memorize all that content?
How do you memorize all those formula that you know as a
Yeah.
mathematician?
Oh, you just keep doing it
You
over
just
and over
keep
again.
doing it, and then the
Gotcha.
brain is a muscle, so it becomes easier and easier. Actually, now it's very hard for me to learn a text because I haven't done it in more than 15 years. It's very hard to me to go back and learn a text. I don't even want to do it.
Yeah, yeah. Oh gosh,
um,
I didn't even put 2 and 2 together. Yeah, I have memorized a lot of formulas in my
of course,
lifetime.
of
And it's
course.
just
The
repetition,
same thing. It's the
repetition,
same
repetition.
thing. The art, actually, like, to push your question further, the question
Mhm,
might be, how do you make it sound like it's said for the first time? That's the art, because
mhm.
you know the text, right? But when you say it, it's the character, like the actor knows the
Right.
text, the character doesn't know the text, and the audience even less. So how
Mhm.
do you make believe
Yeah,
the
how do you do
audience
that?
that you say it for the first time? Again, it's a question of recipe. Everybody has his own
Mhm,
recipe, right? But what I tend to believe is, if you cannot be present in your life, which means when you brush your teeth, you brush your teeth. If you wash your dishes, you wash your dishes. You're not all over the place, right? You're fully into here and now. That's the main ingredient you need to become
mhm.
a good actor, because you need to find a way to be fully here now with your character that says that sentence fully here now for the first time.
That makes perfect sense, actually. And I like that you brought up about being fully present. And I wonder
Mm.
how much of us walk around in life where, you're always ready to go on to the next thing, the next thing, the next thing, the next thing. And you're always 10 steps ahead, but never fully enjoying
No,
what's
never,
right
because
in front of you
and we're
because
so
we
stupid, because
yeah.
besides here now, besides the moment that you're listening to my words right here, right now, it
Mhm.
doesn't matter if you listen to this episode 10 years from now, it doesn't matter. The only thing that counts in your life is this very moment that you listen to my voice saying those words. Life cannot be experienced outside of this moment. But yet we tend to believe that it's possible
Mhm.
to live in the future or to live in the past, but yet one will lead to anxiety, that means you live in the future, or lead to depression, which is mostly you're reliving your past over and
Yeah.
over and over.
To follow up on that, how does that really serve anybody to live in the past and or to live in the future? I mean, if you're living in the past, like you said, it just produces depression in all its varying forms. It can be for, regret or sadness or, wish they had done
Mm,
something different. Hindsight's always 2020, right? We can always look
mm,
back and say we shouldn't have done this. I think when we live in the past, it robs us of enjoying what our present moment
no,
when
for
we're
sure.
either focused too much on the past or focused on the future, it robs us with what we have right here. And the funny thing is, I'm doing it right now. So as you're speaking, I'm present, but the little part of my brain's going to, okay, what's the next question I'm
Yeah.
going to ask Mark? What's the next
Uh-huh.
question? And
And then you
so
lose your question and then you forget
it's
about it because
hard.
you're somewhere else, instead of being in the conversation, which
Yeah,
is
well, that
which
that's
is the whole
partially
art of
true. Well
podcasting, by the
well,
way.
I'm
It's
cheating a little
difficult.
bit because you don't see it, but I have on my screen in front of me a question. So so I'm kinda half listening, but I'm reading it over. But actually, the question that I had ties in really nicely to this and quieting our minds down. So when I listened to you on Jamie's podcast, and I believe you said it on Austin's as well, you mentioned a practice that you do for 10 minutes a day. And when you first said it,
Yeah.
it absolutely like, I paused, I went over to my journal, I wrote it down that I'm gonna do it, and it's like 10 minutes to shut the fuck up every day.
Yeah.
And
How
I'm
about
like,
you shut the
"You
fuck
do it."
up? 10 minutes
Yeah,
a
just
day.
do it in the morning, do it at night. That evening, I set my
Yeah.
timer, I turned the lights off, I sat in my office completely in the quiet and I said, okay, I'm going to do that. Because your challenge was it will change your perspective if you do it for at least 3 months. Now, I've been doing it for a month now because I heard this a month ago. And
Mhm.
I did this on purpose because I knew I was going to be interviewing you. And I want to come back and tell you, yes, it makes a difference. As
It does.
I press into in the morning and at night, I have found myself, and it took a couple of weeks. It's really only been about recently, like the last week, being able to quiet myself in those moments when I need that quiet. And I really think that is coming out of that meditative practice from the morning and at night. And I don't do anything. I just breathe. I deep breathe,
Yeah.
breathe in through my nose deep, breathe out through my mouth deep, and then just be.
Mm.
So
You
I
you
appreciated that. So,
Yeah, because what you're doing basically is you're training your mind to be calm again. You're
mhm,
refeeding your mind tranquility or calmness. This is what you do because we forget. We live in noise. We live
right.
in information. We live in binge watching short videos, right? We live into consuming tremendous amount of content. We're always solicited. There's always the mind is always active, and we forgot to simply look at the landscape. We forgot that just looking at the sunset is fascinating. We forgot that.
Mhm.
We forgot that
Yeah,
the stars are bright at night. We don't look at them anymore.
yeah,
So what
yeah.
you do by shutting the fuck up, I would say the best is to do it twice a day, five
I
minutes
do.
twice a day. Yeah, you're retraining your mind to be calm again.
Yeah. How did you
Yeah.
discover that?
Transcendental meditation. I got initiated into transcendental meditation, TM. So that was
Mm,
the Beetle type of meditation. Like they went in an ashram in India. That was
mm,
the guru was Maharishi Mahesh Yogi, I think. Yes.
okay.
Um, that initiated the Beatles in transcendental meditation. But this is what I took from the transcendental meditation, because most likely what's happening is your teacher gives you a mantra, a word that doesn't mean anything, but it's your word
Mhm.
and you're not allowed to say it to anyone. You're just saying it to yourself. You never say it out loud.
Oh,
And then
wow.
that word that you say over and over in your head becomes your way to sort of get into that calm state, I would say, right?
Mhm.
But then I realized that this basically the structure of it is that just shut the fuck up twice a day, and let's talk about the results of that in 2 3 months. You'll see you'll get results. Just
Yeah.
shut the fuck up. No
Yeah.
music, nothing. Shut the fuck up.
I absolutely 100%. I get up in the morning, that's exactly what I do. No electronics, no nothing, just sitting there in the dark. Then you can hear yourself. You can, when in that quiet. So
Yeah.
I appreciated that. So that's one of our small steps for today. Is just shut up
Shut the
twice a
fuck
day.
up.
Shut the fuck up twice a day. Did you ever hear the book called The Surrender Experiment?
No.
Because oh, okay, you actually might like that because I just finished reading that, and he talks about his journey. Michael Singer is the author, and he
Oh, okay,
talks about
okay.
and out of it, I just realized, wait a minute, just that act of surrender, and then I couple that with the meditation, and when you think about the instances that are coming and the opportunities that come in your life what it really looks like to surrender to those versus trying to
Yeah,
orchestrate everything. I
yeah.
was the type of person who wanted to orchestrate everything in my life. I need to make sure
Wow.
I knew how everything was going to turn out, and it still got screwed up. So after I read this book, I I realized, wait a minute, if I control those things that I can control, which in reality, if you just dig down deep enough, you're really not in control of anything.
No,
But
no, no,
if you
no.
just, yeah, you just make those decisions that need to be made,
Yeah,
and just kind of let life happen. And even our interview happened, right? I
yeah.
reached out, but I didn't think it was going to happen. Or even just hiring Austin as my coach, that was something that I literally didn't think was going to happen, but it
Mm,
came out of a conversation. So I surrendered, quote unquote,
beautiful.
surrendered to that. And that book, I would say for anybody who is a control freak and their life is not going the way they want it to, that is my recommendation. I usually don't give
Beautiful.
recommendations. I ask my guests to give the recommendation.
No, that's gonna be the
But
recommendation. Yes,
yeah,
I agree with you. That's a good
but
one.
that's the one.
The Power
Um,
of Now of Eckhart Tolle is a good one too.
I've heard you talk about on some of your other podcasts about having a simple life. Have you always been like had that a simple life? And
Oh.
if not, yeah, how did you get there?
By shutting up twice a day, maybe, and realizing the thing I didn't lead a life. In Vegas, I had the life like, I had like a big house, a pool, a jacuzzi, 2 cars. I was making money. I was happy, but then I realized I didn't need all that. So I moved to Spain because my wife is from Spain, and I always enjoy this part of the world because people are simple here.
Mhm.
So it's very easy for me to live a simple life among simple people.
What's your suggestion then for those who feel like they have too much noise in their life besides
Shutting the fuck
shutting
up
the fuck
twice a day. No, no, for real. No jokes.
I should
Morning
stop.
and night.
Yeah,
Shut
yeah.
it. That's it. We'll talk about it in 3 months. You'll see. That's the advice of the interview, guys. Shut the fuck up twice
There
a
you
day.
go. That's the small step. That's the small step that's
Yes,
gonna lead to the big result is shut up. Just shut up and turn off all that noise,
absolutely.
because it's amazing, when you think about Facebook, you think of all the noise going on and there's all these reels and all this. We forget that that's not reality. It's
It's
true.
just a perspective of life.
Right.
Social media is just an extension of our social behavior. Since the age of time, we control our image in society. You control
Mhm,
the way you dress, the way you smell, the way you walk when you go to the grocery store, right?
mhm,
You're self-aware. That's a social behavior, and the extension of that digitally is social media, right?
mhm.
So it's not necessarily toxic itself. I think, right? The social media is what we do with
Right.
social
It's
media.
what you do with it, right? It's
Yeah,
how it's interpreted. Honestly, at the end of the day, isn't everything that you experience just based on the lens that you view it through?
yeah, exactly. Ooh, love it. That's a
It's
beautiful way. Wow, that's good.
it's like putting on a pair of glasses,
Yes,
and
absolutely.
how you view that thing that you see because, you know, both of us could be in the same room right now, even though we're halfway across the world.
Yeah,
literally. We could be in the same room. We could be watching the same TV program or show or whatever, and I can interpret one scene, and you could be sitting next to me watching the
exactly.
same thing, and you can interpret it differently. And
Yeah,
how much confusion and anger and animosity is caused because we have misinterpreted what somebody else has said because we just didn't ask for clarification, or we just come in with our own set of thoughts and perceptions that maybe aren't the right reality.
yeah.
No,
Which
which
makes our
is
interaction interesting because it creates conversation, right?
right, right. That's true. That's true. And I think, how do you feel about the art of communication nowadays? I feel like it's something of a lost art where people
I
just
think
don't
people,
communicate
yeah,
like they used to.
I think people don't communicate well with themselves at the first place, which create a
Mm,
bunch of problem when they start to communicate with others. Their intention towards themselves is not clear because they don't take the time to listen to themselves. They live in that noise all the time.
mhm.
So therefore, the extension of that is entering into conflict at every single conversation, basically. So I
Yeah.
think the
Yeah.
problem of communication is that.
I know you have twin girls, I believe, yes?
Yeah,
Or was it what? Yeah. And they are, if I remember
10.
correctly, 10, right?
Yeah.
So how do you help them in a world where, you can't escape
Hmm.
the social media, the
I
electronics, everything? How do you
Yeah,
help them
I educate
unplug?
them, I teach them, I don't restrict the screen time. I don't monitor the screen time. I teach how the platform works. I teach how the platforms make money. It's important to understand that, how the YouTubers make money. And I build their self confidence as much as I can. And I'll tell you in another 20 years if I'm successful or not. But for
Well,
now, this is what I do.
yeah, I have a very unique experience from my own personal life because I have 3 kids, and my
Okay.
oldest is 27, and then they go
Wow.
down to 24 and 21.
Wow.
And very interesting, the 27-year-old did not have a cell phone until he was 16.
Okay.
The middle one, he got free, like, with each child, you kinda got looser in your restrictions,
Yes.
right? So the
Yes.
middle child would be on the computer all the time, and I chastise him for it, but there's a good ending to the story, though. And then the youngest one is like, "Oh, what the hell? Okay, you're just gonna do it anyway because your brothers are doing it, and that's just the way it is." But it's very interesting today because my oldest is really not on social media. He doesn't have very much, he
Wow.
doesn't have a whole lot of interest, and he controls, like, it's self-controlled. He gets in, he gets out, and uses it. My middle one, who just was on it 24/7, he's now a software engineer. I said, "Well, at least
Wow.
it paid
It
off.
is.
All those video games that you played, paid off." And then my daughter, who's 21, she's even though we didn't restrict her, we taught her, how to, like what you're doing with your daughters, how to
Yeah.
be responsible and wise on it. And she's like, "Yeah, I don't have Facebook. I don't care. I don't
Wow.
have Instagram. I don't care." And she gets on, she gets off. They
Wow.
don't.
Wow.
Very, 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 very interesting. But what the one thing with sounds like you're doing with your girls that I did with my kids is I made them aware of themselves and not to get lost in the technology.
Yes.
Technology is the tool that you can use to help you, but don't allow it to become your
E-
identity.
Exactly. Good job. You resumed the whole thing. What a beautiful way to resume this episode.
Oh,
Yes. Technology is just a tool.
yeah.
Absolutely.
It's just
Absolutely.
a
But we
tool.
identify to it and we make it the center of our existence, whereas it's only one component of life. Absolutely.
Right. Mark, is there one question you wish I should have asked or a topic that you wanted to cover? And how would you answer or how would you expand on the topic?
Right now, nothing really comes in my mind. Mm, no, nothing really, really. No, I just enjoyed the conversation. Thank you so much for having
Same.
me.
Same
Very,
here.
very cool. Yeah, I really
Yeah,
enjoyed the
I'm
podcast.
enjoying
Keep
it.
going.
Thank you. Thank you.
People,
I was
if you
gonna
made it to the end of this interview, please share the episode, comment something, rate it on
please.
Apple. That's
Yes.
gonna help her so much.
I appreciate
So,
that
so
very
much.
much so. Yeah, and I ask all my guests, there's core 3 questions that I asked. The one about, what did we not cover that you want to talk about? That was one of them. We already hit the other 2, which was the book recommendation, and from your story, what can listeners do today? And as a recap, I can't say it enough, 10 minutes. Go ahead, Mark, finish it. What are you gonna do?
Shut the fuck up twice a day and see you in 3 months.
Perfect. Thank you, Doctor
Perfect.
Mark. I
Thank you
appreciate
so much,
it,
Sue.
and thanks. How people reach out to you? That's the
Yeah,
last
they
one.
can go on my they can go on my website, podcastproducer.com. If not, all the my links will be in the show notes. I
Mhm. Yep, they will be. All right. Well, thank you again.
thank you so much.
I want to thank you for watching or listening to my podcast. I value your time with me because I realize you could be listening to someone else right now. And I also want you to know that I now offer coaching and consulting. So if you're thinking about creating a course but not sure how to structure it, or you have a small step you need to take to lead to a big result, but you're not sure what the in between looks like, check out my website at www.suesaller.com for more information and to request a free consultation. Remember, life doesn't get better by chance, it gets better by choice. Take small steps and make today awesome, friends. God bless.